Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Tonight, 2 journalists murdered 1 year ago are being remembered with a vigil in Tijuana. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado spoke with a journalist who was a close friend of one victim and says it's been a hard year for those covering the border city.
This was Margarito Martinez. He was a beloved and well-known photojournalist who covered the police beat and narco crime in Tijuana. He often took to Facebook using his signature police jargon to sign on and off. Martinez was well known in Tijuana and internationally for helping reporters navigate the world of narco reporting, often with no credit or pay. It's been a year since he was murdered, just outside of his Tijuana home. Friend and colleague Guillermo Arias says he can't believe it's been a year since he's seen his friend.
Especially he left a void covering narco police-related issues in Tijuana. He left a void, not only in our hearts, but in the news matter. And that's, I think that's all our loss.
People were arrested for his murder, but Arias says it hurts that his life was taken for no reason. Martinez was killed because someone falsely accused him of writing a narco blog.
It wasn't truth, and it certainly didn't put a bullet on his head, but at least encourage the people who did it.
Just days after his murder, veteran broadcast journalist Lourdes Maldonado was gunned down outside her home in Tijuana.
It's been a really tough year for all of us. In a matter of a week, we lost 2 colleagues, and it was insane. It was crazy.
Vicente Calderon of TijuanaPress.com has been covering Tijuana for over 3 decades. He says he met Maldonado in the 80s when she came to the border city to grow a news brand.
But she adapted very quickly, and she made a name for herself. I was very happy to see, after her unfortunate death, that many female reporters look up to her from the time when they were kids.
Calderon says she had recently won a long-time labor dispute with a TV station owned by the former governor of Baja California. And she made a lot of news herself leading up to the win.
I mean, she was willing to go and stand up in front of the president and demand her rights when she knew that this local politician was a very close friend of the president. That takes some guts.
But he says she was finally happy. He and a colleague interviewed her a couple of days before her murder.
And my colleague asked her, "Are you afraid?" And she said, "No, I feel very, very happy." And that's when she was killed 2 days later.
Arias says it's important to take time to remember those who gave their lives to inform society. But he also says that society must also be careful about the words they use against those who provide that service.
Create a narrative that only our truth is the truth and everything else is just fake. And that put us journalists in a lot of danger, not only in Mexico, but I think worldwide. Sometimes I ask myself, is this worth it?
Last year was a deadly one for journalists in Mexico. 5 people have been convicted in the murders of Martinez and Maldonado, but the people who ordered the murders have not. Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
A Camp Pendleton Marine is among 3 active duty Marines arrested this week for storming the U.S. Capitol in 2021. Corporal Micah Kumar is facing misdemeanor charges, including illegal entry and disorderly conduct. According to court documents, fellow Marines helped investigators identify the three in footage of the pro-Trump mob. A spokesman for the Marine Corps said it is aware of the allegations and is fully cooperating with the appropriate authorities. It's been called one of the greatest, if not the greatest, feat in naval aviation history, but almost no one has known about it or the person who achieved it until now. KPBS reporter John Carroll shares the story of 97-year-old Captain Royce Williams and the long overdue honor that he received today.
In front of the Air and Space Museum today, a ceremony held, an honor bestowed on a very special American. As hundreds watched, Secretary of the Navy Carlos Del Toro pinned the Navy Cross onto Captain Royce Williams.
It was a combat air patrol.
The event that led to this day happened 70 years ago during the Korean War. Then Lieutenant Williams and his squadron were flying patrol near the coast of North Korea when members of his squadron spotted a group of Soviet MiG fighters. The rest of the squadron had to return to their aircraft carrier because of mechanical issues, leaving Williams alone to battle the enemy.
They shot first. So it was on and game on, and I didn't have a choice.
For the next 35 minutes, Williams fought the MiGs in an F-9, F-5 Panther, what he calls an inferior plane to the MiGs, but
I had a better gun sight and reliable guns.
He would use those guns to shoot down 4 MiGs in what was the longest dogfight in the history of the Navy. His airplane sustained 263 shots, but Williams was still able to get it back to his ship, the aircraft carrier USS Oriskany, and safely land. The Soviet Union was not officially involved in the Korean War, and the Navy feared publicity about the event would force the Soviets' hand and cause them to enter the war in support of North Korea. So
I was told to never say anything about it, never.
Williams received the Silver Star, and that was that. Until many years later, when Congressman Darrell Issa learned of Williams' heroism, he began pressing the Navy to upgrade the star to the Navy Cross. It finally reached the desk of Navy Secretary Del Toro, who says it was not a tough decision.
It didn't take much to convince me that this was the right course of action. This man deserves the Navy Cross in every possible way.
After today's ceremony, Captain Williams returned to his home in Escondido. You may know that Escondido means hidden, a notable irony for one of its most distinguished residents whose astonishing act of heroism is hidden no longer. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Homelessness has been dropping among veterans in San Diego County, but Supervisor Nathan Fletcher wants a regional strategy to end it completely. The Regional Task Force on the Homeless says there are now 700 homeless veterans in the county, and about half of them are staying in temporary shelters. Fletcher says getting all of those vets off the street will involve using federal resources and local commitments.
What we have to do now is partner with the VA. We got to step in and identify where are gaps, what are additional things we can do, where can we step up and help, how can we bridge that connection between that veteran who's struggling and that help that is available to them. And that's what we're going to do.
Fletcher spoke at an American Legion post in La Mesa. He says next month he'll introduce a policy to create a county task force to figure out the resources needed to end veteran homelessness. Then he wants a plan in place in 3 months. A promising sign that the worst of the COVID spike and flu season may be over. San Diego County reported COVID case numbers dropped by more than 30% over the past week. Flu cases are down about 45% from the previous week. Those numbers are in line with national trends. The CDC says ER visits for COVID, flu, and RSV have dropped to the lowest levels since September. The pandemic and recent inflation brought changes to price and availability for so many items, but what is it about eggs that strikes a nerve for shoppers? SDSU's Miro Kopik offers his thoughts in the Friday Business Report.
So when egg prices increase, it's always a shock to consumers because it's one of those things that households at all income levels purchase on a fairly regular basis. And any item you buy in the supermarket on a regular basis, when you see price increases every time you shop, it becomes a concern and it becomes reflective of what you might think about the rest of your shopping trip. So a carton of eggs in January of 2022 was $1.93, and they're $4.25 at the end of December. So we saw big declines in gas prices, auto prices, but grocery prices have remained stubbornly high. Last year, a lot of consumer products companies increased prices 2 or 3 times over the course of the year. ConAgra, one company that increased prices 3 times, made an announcement during its earnings call earlier this week saying, look, we're done with price increases. We understand that consumers are in pain, but one price to watch is eggs, and we'll see if they decline over the next 3 or 4 months.
Customs and Border Patrol is asking travelers not to bring eggs into the U.S. The CBP's Director of Field Operations in San Diego says officers are seeing an increase in uncooked eggs at the border. It comes as people look for ways to save money. Our media partners, 10 News, found at one grocery store in San Isidro, a dozen eggs is priced at $10.99, and that price was way too steep for many shoppers.
For 2 dozens, there's going to be $22. So I'm not going to make it with my budget, no.
I used to buy it for $1.99, $2.99, but no, that price is crazy.
And trying to get eggs across the border could cost you even more. It is illegal, with fines up to $10,000. As the migrant crisis at the southern border intensifies, the Biden administration unveiled a mobile app. It allows asylum seekers to schedule appointments to be considered for entry into the U.S. Tijuana officials say about 200 migrants registered through the app are crossing into San Diego every day. But as KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis found out, many people are running into problems with the new system.
Cristian Valencia is trying to schedule an appointment through U.S. Customs and Border Protection's CBP One app. This is the new mobile app that asylum seekers and other migrants who don't have a valid visa must now use to get into the U.S. Valencia, who is a migrant from the Mexican state of Michoacán, is having technical difficulties. He says that the Wi-Fi at the Tijuana migrant shelter he's living in isn't strong enough for the app. It keeps crashing on him. So he came to get some help at Tijuana's Palacio Municipal, the local city hall. That's where city employees are helping migrants create their own profiles on CBP One. This app is the latest effort by the Biden administration to deal with the migrant crisis. Since 2020, border officials have turned away 2.5 million people, including many asylum seekers, at the ports of entry. Enrique Lucero is the director of Tijuana's Migrant Services Department. He says between 30 and 40 migrants come to City Hall every day asking for help.
Todos vienen huyendo, desplazados, llegan primero a la garita, son rechazados por el título 42.
All of them are fleeing their home, he says, and they've already tried crossing the border. They were turned away because of Title 42 and were told to sign up through the app. Title 42 is a controversial border policy that allows CBP agents to deny asylum seekers entry without a court hearing. Lucero says there are obvious problems with the app. Some migrants don't have a smartphone or internet access. Also, the app is only available in Spanish and English. But overall, Lucero says that there are more positives than negatives.
Tiene muchos aspectos positivos.
This app gives them direct access to the U.S. asylum system and, most importantly, an appointment date to be considered for entry. In theory, Lucero believes that all of this should make migrants less vulnerable to human smugglers. Nonetheless, immigrant rights activists are not bullish on CBP One. Erika Pinedo is a litigation and policy director at Al Otro Lado, an LA-based nonprofit that helps migrants in Mexico. She says her office has already seen vulnerable migrants get taken advantage of.
We are already seeing people charging thousands of dollars to help folks fill out the CBP One application, especially Haitians who don't speak English or Spanish.
Apart from the language and technological barriers, Pinedo says CBP One essentially makes seeking asylum like trying to buy tickets to a Taylor Swift concert.
Whether or not you get an appointment is based on the strength of your internet connection and chance, right? So it works like Ticketmaster. So when you have a concert that's going to sell out, everyone presses the button at the same time, and some people get tickets and some people don't. And that's basically what CBP One has reduced the U.S. asylum system to.
There are also concerns about the app's facial recognition feature. Applicants need to take a photo of their face to create a profile. Studies show that other forms of facial recognition technology used by the federal government do a poor job of identifying people of certain races and ethnicities.
There are really high error rates with certain races, especially Black and Asian applicants. So we would expect that people who are not white are going to have a harder time with the facial recognition feature.
Back in Tijuana's Palacio Municipal, we saw this play out in real time. An elderly Haitian woman named Maria struggled to get the app to recognize her face. She grew increasingly frustrated as she held a phone in front of her face and waited for the app to scan. Maria tried dozens of times. The phone couldn't make out her black face from the dark background. We tried to help her by having her turn around and face the light. Es que con la luz que tiene ahorita está muy oscuro. Entonces, mira, te ayudo así. And for a second, it seemed to work. The face appeared on the screen and the app began to scan. Then, the screen went blank. Assuming that Maria eventually gets the app to work for her, she'll have to wait until at least February for an appointment. All January appointments are already booked. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
The ocean north of Torrey Pines State Beach turned pink this morning. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson says the Scripps Institution of Oceanography researchers are trying to understand how fresh and salty ocean water interact.
Researchers who want to track the volatile currents along the coast need a bright pink dye. And Scripps researchers had a whole barrel full. Just after 9 a.m., they started pumping the dye into Los Peñasquitos Lagoon. Researcher Sarah Giddings says scientists know a lot about how big rivers interact with the ocean, but not so much about the many rivers that work on a smaller scale.
These very small river plumes interact very directly with the surf zone, and that the breaking waves have an impact on their ultimate spreading.
When the river's fresh water mixes with the sea, it creates a plume that can carry bad things like pollution and good things like nutrients into the ocean.
The waves can effectively trap the river plume in the surf zone such that it spreads along the shore instead of punching offshore. And so we're sort of trying to understand that transition between when it punches offshore and spreads offshore versus when it gets trapped in the surf zone and spreads alongshore.
Releasing the dye and watching the winter waves turn pink is not just for show. Researchers are interested in learning as much as they can about the event, and they deployed a lot of sophisticated gear.
Great. We've got a lot of moving pieces here. We've got offshore sensors that we scuba dove on, deployed a couple weeks ago. We've got the jet ski, I don't know if you noticed, it's got fluorometers, CTDs, temperature, depth, conductivity, measuring salt, things that as well. It's also measuring the bathymetry. We've got 2 drones in the air. One's got a hyperspectral drone. It measures wavelengths.
A second round of dye was released a few hours later. Once researchers compile all the data collected today, they hope to be able to better understand how these intertidal zones work. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Thanks for joining us. Let's start you off with your weather headlines. There is a freeze watch for the area for the start of the weekend right through Riverside County. Chilly Friday evening through Saturday morning, which is what's causing this cause for concern for frosting in the area. But overall, a dry pattern. We're finally drying out throughout the state of California. We have this lift in the jet stream. Honestly, high pressure is going to be the dominating factor, persistent. That's going to be keeping a lot of that moisture far off towards our north, unseasonably cold as we travel across the desert southwest. But again, that frost advisory in effect through Riverside County. That's going to be in effect into the early hours, the morning on Saturday. So again, make sure that you are taking care of any outdoor plants. Bring those pets indoors. These are no conditions for them to be outside. Now around the San Diego metro area tonight, you're dropping down to a low of 41. Clear but chilly. Around the region, basically rinse and repeat the same story as we come over towards the more mountainous regions like Mount Laguna, dropping down to a low of 25. So chilly, chilly, chilly. Oceanside at 34, Ramona at 32. For Saturday, though, we'll have bright skies, plenty of sunshine, highs closer to the coast in the 60s, and then closer to the mountains in the 40s. So we do have this beach hazard statement along the coastal regions because we are dealing with high tides, which can cause some minor flooding. And by the end of the weekend into next week, we are staying dry, but those winds will start to ramp up. We're dealing with weaker local Santa Ana winds for Southern California. We're already dealing with a very saturated ground, though, so we are concerned for uprooted trees. Now, along the coast, Monday, again, few clouds start to roll in, but overall temperatures staying pretty steady, high 63 for the foreseeable future. Inland, similar story, staying in the 60s. Now, around the mountains, cooler. We're dropping down to the 30s by Monday, but for the desert, in the 60s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
A new drug for Alzheimer's has been put on pause in the approval process. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration declined to give accelerated approval for donanemab. The agency is asking the drug maker Eli Lilly for more data. The Alzheimer's Association says the phase 2 trial of the drug showed significant slowing of memory decline and daily function. Eli Lilly plans to file phase 3 trial data to the FDA later this year. Is timing really everything? Well, maybe not when it comes to eating and weight loss. Karen Kafa has a look at the results of new research on intermittent fasting.
A new study making headlines suggests a popular weight loss method may not be as effective as once thought. The study, published in the Journal of the American Heart Association, tracked the portion sizes and eating times of 547 people and data on their health and weight for 6 years. Researchers found no association between restricting eating times, like the trend of intermittent fasting, and weight loss. What the study did find effective: smaller meals. Julia Zampano, registered dietitian with the Cleveland Clinic Center for Human Nutrition, is among experts who caution the sample size of the study was small and the participants not as diverse as the larger population. She sees some benefits in limiting the timing of meals.
Intermittent fasting can decrease the amount of insulin that you produce, so it can lead to reduction in fat storage. Fasting can also help lower blood triglycerides, blood sugar. In certain cases, it can lower blood pressure and cholesterol.
Whether narrowing meal times or counting calories, Zampano says it's important to find an approach that's realistic for you.
No one likes to be told, you cannot eat, you cannot do this. So just being able to set boundaries on when you can and cannot do things can really help you attain those goals.
The U.S. Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommends focusing 85% of your food on nourishment and the rest for a little enjoyment and indulgence. Karen Kafa, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, the effort to arm Ukraine ahead of a new expected Russian offensive. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
This weekend is the start of a new beginning for many Asian communities as it's the beginning of the Lunar New Year. The celebrations kick off tonight in City Heights for a 3-day celebration featuring cultural exhibitions, performances, and even some fireworks. 2023 is the year of the cat and the rabbit, and for many cultures, this is one of the most important holidays of the year, entering the new year with hope and with happiness. The event is free and open to everyone and is even pet-friendly. You've heard of pickup games in basketball and baseball, but what about pickup sword fighting? It's all in fun with foam swords. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne introduces us to the live-action fantasy role-playing sport.
Every Saturday at Poinsettia Park in Carlsbad, a battle goes down.
Basically, we're a fantasy foam fighting. The best way to describe it is a pickup sport. Anybody can join. We welcome walk-ups basically all the time. You can show up. We have a whole bag of extra swords, and you run around and fight, man, and you have a great time doing it.
Now, I want to be clear that I knew close to nothing about live-action fantasy role-playing or AmpGuard when I took on this story. But Brian Middaugh broke it down for me.
And this is AmpGuard, is the name of the sport. I'm right now the Duke of this small establishment. only the Duke of this park. There are basically parks around the entire nation. Everyone has a manager. Depending on the size of the park, they can range anywhere from like a baron to a duke to a king if you're the big enough park.
The name of Midaw's group is Sargata. A couple weeks ago, Midaw went semi-viral when he posted on Reddit inviting anyone interested to come out and fight with them.
And it blew up. I think it got 100,000 views, 500 shares, and here we are.
Dalton Moronic was one of the new players.
What's up?
Nice to meet you.
Are you here to fight?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Seen it on Reddit.
Sweet. Yes.
First time out here. I've always kind of been interested in stuff. You know, I mean, everybody's seen Role Models. Everyone knows how awesome that movie is. Seems like a lot of fun. And why not? You know, don't take yourself too seriously.
Moronic said he will be returning not only for the fun, but also for the exercise.
It's really fun to just kind of forget about the rest of the world and, you know, embrace your inner kid.
Midaw says shows like Game of Thrones and Rings of Power are striking a deeper curiosity into the fantasy world.
As this is a sport where everybody can come out, they can get some exercise, they can dress up in funny clothes and not take things too seriously. You just come out and you have fun. There are people who take it quite seriously, and great for them.
No experience is needed to join Sargata on Saturdays, and Midaw says it's great for beginners.
Basically, anybody can come out. We are absolutely inviting to any and all people. We gotta have a good attitude. Only thing you need, great shoes, comfortable clothes. We have all of the weapons. We have all the gear that you need. We can outfit you. Come out with a positive attitude and have fun fighting.
The group meets every Saturday at 1 o'clock in Poinsettia Park in Carlsbad.
Warriors, weapons up! 3, 2, 1.
Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.